Welcome to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I am Coach Lorianne. Our goal here at Healthy Lifestyle is to inspire, educate, and empower you to fulfill a healthy, emotional, spiritual, and physical life so you too can feel empowered to live the life you have always wanted and dreamed. And today we have our good friend, Vince Perrotta, the wonderful, the most amazing man. Welcome to the show, and thanks for co-hosting today.
Thanks very much. It's nice to be here again. Good to see you.
See you too. I love that we give everybody verbal caffeine and offer possibilities and talk about a lot of things. So what's on your mind today, Mr. Vince?
It's been a little bit of a tough day. I had an interesting conversation and had to give somebody feedback and they didn't take it really well.
Oh, tell me what happened.
So it's a situation where a new person in a role, and they're trying to understand how to be successful, and they say they want to be successful. And so we've been working together a bit. And then as I've explained kind of, why are you not having success? What are some of the challenges you're having? Here's some things that you have to think about. When things were not happening, I had to help that individual as an accountability portion of my coaching, recognize what they're not doing. And so they didn't take the feedback really well and kind of got a little negative. So.
Oh, okay. So they got negative. Why do you think? Do you think it was defensive?
I think there's a level of defensiveness. I also think, one of the hardest things, we all say we want feedback. We all want the truth, but it really is a hard thing.
It is. But if I could just take a moment and change the lens. So perhaps we need to change the lens on feedback. I think, and I believe very strongly, that feedback is one of the number one amazing cost-free tools that we have as a business. So if we listen to the feedback, we could agree or disagree, whatever the case may be, but we can't take it personal. This is feedback on the services we're providing. And if we take the ego out, change our lens and look at it from an observer, are they making justifiable excuses, or are they making good points that help you become better? So I know when I get feedback and someone's not happy with me, I get disappointed. I don't want to disappoint anybody. But it also takes a moment where, once again, taking 100% responsibility, I look inward. And we recently did an episode where we talked about 100% responsibility, but looking inward and looking at my company and saying, is this right? Is there something I can take away from that? And there's the advantage in the feedback. It helps us stay on track. Would that have helped your client in this situation or employee?
It did, in the sense that it helped them recognize, what's the gap of performance and why is this not happening? But, it was really hard for them to hear those kinds of things.
Yeah. Well, isn't it difficult to hear negative things? But if we look at it, it goes back to, again, something we spoke about recently, which is fear. What does that mean? And now I have to take responsibility for this. And I might not agree with you. What happens when that happens, Vince?
Well, that's the thing, is then we need to talk about it, because that's a breakdown in the coaching process. Because really, if you think about it, the feedback is to help you grow. If you disagree with the feedback, let's entertain that for a second. If you disagree with the feedback, the question is it because it's off base, or is it because it's hard to hear?
Yes.
If the feedback is relevant, correct, specific, and actionable, then you need to take a step back. And I got some good advice once, and I'm curious kind of how you suggest people receive feedback, not give it, but receive it. They said, just listen to it.
Yes.
Just acknowledge it. Yes. And then at the end, ask a question and say, can you tell me an example or show me an example of where that occurred so I can understand it?
Yes. And that's the important thing. Sometimes we receive feedback and we can't understand it. We can't process it, not because we're resistant to it, but because we don't realize. And it goes back to what? Awareness. Awareness is that beautiful thing. Awareness equals choice, which equals action. So if I'm aware I'm doing something, now I have a choice to either fix it, change it, do it, or not. Right. And that equals what my action is going to be. So if the person is not aware of what they're doing or understanding it, I agree with you. My reaction is, okay, how can we make this a 10? And I usually do it a rating system. It's like, if you rated the work that I did for you as a 7, and I'm a 7 for you, What would I have to do to make it a 10 for you? And that's when you get some really good yummy stuff. Now again, we don't have to accept everything and change everything and do everything. We just have to hear it, take it in, and see what works. That's where we come up with the choice. Do something with it or don't.
I think what you just said is key, is just take it in. And sometimes I think that if we, prior to providing feedback, kind of coached the reception of feedback, that might help. It may not help, but it might help in that saying to somebody, let me just get this all out, take a minute, digest it, and ask me questions about it, right? All I want you to do is try and understand it. And then we could talk about it from there.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's really hard. So what happened in that experience? They didn't take it well. It didn't go well. Did they continue the conversation or did they shut down?
So we did continue the conversation, but you could tell that it was laborious. And
for you, or for them, or for both?
Well, for both, I would say, because I could see that person was trying really hard, but they weren't giving me enough to act on. And part of coaching is not to over coach, right? So saying too much is sometimes as bad as saying nothing, because it kind of gets lost. You have to be succinct, you have to be clear, you have to be specific and actionable. And then you need to sit back, let that person now take it, talk to me about that. And so I didn't feel that receptivity. I didn't find the intellectual curiosity that I would have hoped for. Yeah. So that made it hard for me too.
And it made it hard for you. How did that make you feel?
It made me feel like this was not productive, and that, essentially we should probably take a pause here, put a bookmark and say, you know what, let's come back to this another time. Because I think right now we're in a place where we're not moving in any direction, and that's not helping either.
Yeah, one of the keys, and I like that you said take a pause. One of the keys I find with me is when you're in a conversation that's not going really well, pushing that pause button is important, because sometimes it's not about necessarily resistance. It's about digestion and application. So now we did step one, make them aware. Now they have opportunity for choices, right? Because awareness equals choice equals action. But they may not be able to see those choices right now because they just something was brought to their attention. Now they're aware that they can't wrangle with. They don't know how to settle with it. So taking that pause is really smart. And I really do encourage it. We need to do that more. We are a society, and when we're brought up in our society and in school, it's like, answer me now, answer me. Do you have an answer? You don't have an answer. You don't know what we're talking about. You just, no. Sometimes we have to take a pause. I reflect to a boss I had, and I loved Michael. I worked for this company, and Michael was my boss, and I would go in there and present something to him, and he would just sit there and stare at me in this like deafening silence. And I would be like, I didn't know what to do. So of course, being the Italian person who talks a lot, I just I threw up. I kept adding information and giving him more. Like, do you not have enough? Do I have to give you more? Are you waiting something for me? Instead of just embracing the silence. It's similar to that as to embracing the pause. And the funny part about that is one day I went in and I was like, stop doing that. Why are you doing that? And he looked at me and he goes, oh, well, I'm just giving it thoughtful consideration. And also he goes, I got two things out of it. I give it thoughtful consideration. I'm really, thinking about what you said and what are the options that we have, right? But he said, the second thing I get out of it is, what do you generally do? And I said, throw up on your desk. And he's like, yeah. He goes, a lot of times I get more information if I just wait. And so that pause and that wait is potentially more information. They get to process what you've told them, and maybe they have an aha moment, because our initial response is going to be what? Defensive, right? Like, oh, I can't believe you said that. I don't do that. I'm trying my best, but are you taking 100% responsibility? Are you listening? Are they hearing you? So what happened after you took the pause, or is it this new that we haven't even gotten over?
No, it's that new. So that's kind of where we are. And it makes me ask the question, essentially, is feedback really important? Because to have a response like that, I was asked to participate. It wasn't a choice. I did willingly, and we set ground rules at the very beginning of, okay, we're going to do this. This is how we're going to do it. Here's what you can expect of me. right? Here's what I expect of you. And, you know, this is not within our, let's call it the framework of our agreement. But I also understand what I had to say was not in the realm of something like, hey, good morning, here, let me give you some feedback that you may not particularly care for, right?
Right.
So
Right.
I appreciate it. We're human.
Yeah, of course. And in the appreciation of that. But yeah, feedback is really something we can utilize to our advantage. Feedback is an opportunity to become better. Feedback is an opportunity to become better, because the only feedback that we focus on as something that we're like, is bad feedback. So good feedback, we want good feedback, right? So we don't have that visceral reaction. Good feedback, yay, I rock, right? But bad feedback is just an opportunity to get better, not only for that client, but for other clients. And we don't necessarily have to agree to it. Sometimes I've had clients that I had to fire because what their expectations were beyond the scope of what we were doing together and beyond anything I could possibly deliver. And it was actually over anticipated expectation. So there's also a responsibility to manage expectation, right? So when you get that feedback, whether it's positive or negative, you need to kind of just look at it, take it in, like you said, sit with it, and then see, where can I get better? So even if it's good feedback, you can even take that to the next level. Oh, I'm good at communicating. I'm going to continue communicating this way. And how can I improve that communication? How can I take that from a 9 to a 10? Or how can I take that from a 5 to a 10? What are the things that if I were to make this better, even if it was a 10, how can I make it better? Is a really good way to respond to feedback, instead of like, I could yell at you, but then are you going to give me feedback ever again? Probably not. If I pout and stomp away, are you going to give me feedback again?
No, they're not.
No, of course not, because it wasn't a good experience. Here you're trying to help. All you're doing is trying to help by giving feedback, right?
And each success, right? I am trying to help, and each negative response is going to pull me a little further back until, if I'm asked for feedback, I'm essentially either not going to provide it, I'll temper it, or, just say, listen, I don't think this relationship is working.
Yeah. So they're not going to listen. So why waste my time, right? Why waste my breath?
But right. And also, this is a positive situation. I am here for your development. I am here for your success.
Right.
That's my vested interest. Period.
Right. And that's it. And sentence, complete sentence.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at it from that perspective, even if they have a negative response, which does not produce the right continuation and doesn't produce the lens that you really need to have to receive feedback in order for you to improve yourself. If you look at feedback as an opportunity to improve, that is where the advantage is. It's like, okay, yeah, give me feedback. Because if you didn't tell me, hey, Lorianne, I received an email and it had errors in it, I wouldn't have known that I had to fix it. I wasn't aware. Now you brought it to my attention and awareness. Am I upset with myself and disappointed? Yeah. But do I have an opportunity to fix it and make it better? Absolutely. Why? Because I listened to your feedback.
And there's also reinforcement of behaviors. You made a point before, if I'm doing something well, wow, that's great. I want to look into doing that even better. So that's reinforcement of good behavior. There's also reinforcement of poor behavior when you don't get feedback and you're doing something you think is splendid and, oh, my goodness, this is outstanding. And I keep doing it and doing it and doing it. In the meantime, damaging my work or my reputation or the quality of what I'm providing clients. So that feedback is the only way I'm going to find that out.
Absolutely. And oh my gosh, have you ever been in that situation where you didn't know, you thought you were doing a rock job because nobody was saying anything, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, bam, hammer, you're doing a terrible job. What? Wait, what? Why didn't somebody tell me? Right. I'm sure that sentence has come out of everyone's mouth at one time or another, is, I wish you had told me. It goes to, asking for assistance. I wish you had told me you needed somebody to help you move. I would have come and help you. But because we never asked, we never gave them the opportunity to do that, right? So the same thing with feedback is, if you don't give them feedback, how do you, as a manager or as a coach, expect them to remedy the situation? So how do you do that? Do you always give feedback, or are